And we're not the only lab that's noticed anomalies in the dust. USGS, for instance, reported a very strong zinc component. And in this World Trade Center dust, there's all this zinc dust. There's also a lot of iron and sulfur, but those have prosaic explanations, possible. But the zinc, manganese, and barium in the dust, which we report, which independent labs report, those point to thermites, as somebody really knew what they were doing. We've tested a number of those that we see in the dust, and therefore we build our thermate that way. We put that in a steel container. Boom, it just blasted through with corrosion. And you can see it on the steel. It just cuts through very rapidly. And then there's this corrosion on the steel. Corrosion, by the way, which is observed in cars near the World Trade Center towers as they collapsed. There's this dramatic corrosion on the roofs. About 1,000 cars or so. I've seen 1,300 mentioned cars damaged in this way with this enormous, strange corrosion on the roof. So, but that's what you expect from thermite residue falling onto cars. You expect it to corrode the cars, just like it corrodes and cuts through the steel. Overwhelming, comes to mind because of the way these data just fit together, not just our lab, but other labs as well. Worcester Polytechnic Institute had steel from the rubble of World Trade Center 7 and the tower, the towers region. It's all jumbled together over there. And they found sulfidation in the steel, just what we're talking about. And they had no explanation. Thermites fit the picture, the molten material flowing out, the white wispy ash drifting away, that would be the aluminum oxide, the bright reaction region, intense, which NIST has a photo of this, they just didn't know how to explain it. Well, thermite explains that. And then subsequently the flow of molten metal, the ash, it's all explained. And then the zinc, manganese, and barium in the dust, and the sulfidation, you add a little sulfur, remember, to make that thermite cut through steel faster. So all those things are present.
Exclusively, though, there were many video cameras at that intersection. Okay. They show that this simply didn't happen. No explosion.
Go against another. Hours after the attack, many smaller explosions rumbled through downtown.
But conclusively, the video evidence shows that these things didn't happen.
You gotta get back from here. You know that. You gotta get back. All right, smoking. Don't. All right, smoking. Don't. All right, smoking. Don't. All right, smoking. Don't.
But conclusively, the video evidence shows that these things didn't happen.
That's a good one.
The official investigators accept the fires in Tower 7 were never hot enough to melt steel. They think the steel was heated to about 600 degrees centigrade, crucially the temperature at which steel loses half its strength. According to the official investigators, the main fires were concentrated on floors 6 through to 13, except floor 10. And there were fires initially on some of the upper floors. And new evidence has emerged which supports the official theory that fire brought Tower 7 down. This is some of the only footage of the south face of the building, and it shows the whole side engulfed in smoke.
It was from number 7. The smoke was coming out of the building, not going from the opposite direction. That's insane. It was coming out of the windows. You see it on the video, you see it in the still pictures. There was heavy smoke, numerous floors had fire on it.
This is indicative of a negative pressure which drew the smoke from the World Trade Center 6 or 5 that was burning quite severely. So if that photo was of smoke, it would have to be coming from every window. But there was no fires from every window, and right around the corner where the smoke stops, there's no fires, and there's no visible flames in any of that smoke. So it appears to not be coming from World Trade Center 7. Fires weren't burning on all the floors simultaneously. They were scattered about on the floors. And as they burn, they're going to move through the building, so it will certainly heat up some of the steel in an area. But then as it moves on, when it consumes the combustibles there, the chairs, the desk, the tables, whatever papers were there, then there's no longer any source of heat.
Investigators say columns hadn't been removed, they'd been weakened by fires. And what's more, the building did not collapse at freefall speed. The scientists timed the fall of the top 17 floors before they disappeared from view. It took 5.4 seconds. A freefall collapse would have taken 3.9 seconds.
Clearly, the time that this building took to collapse was longer by almost 40 to 50% than the free fall time of an object. Well, 40% is a lot longer than, it's not 5%, it's 40%, it's huge.
In August 2008, after a 7-year delay, NIST, the government agency charged with investigating the World Trade Center collapses, released the draft of their final report on the collapse of World Trade Center Building 7 for public comment. In that report, they claimed that the time for the building to fall the first 18 stories, that's the part of the collapse visible on many videos, was 40% longer than it would have taken had it been in free fall. I responded with a video posted on YouTube called WTC7 in Freefall, in which I showed that for approximately 2.5 seconds, Building 7 fell at a rate indistinguishable from freefall. Furthermore, in that video I showed that NIST's methodology was not a valid way to analyze the true motion of the building. NIST's measurement was not just wrong, it was fraudulent. Then on August 26th, NIST staged a technical briefing in which engineers and others with technical credentials could pose questions. I am a high school physics teacher, so I figured I would be excluded. However, I went ahead and registered, citing my membership in the American Association of Physics Teachers as my professional affiliation. By the way, I am not speaking for AAPT. That was just my passport into the briefing. To my surprise, my credentials were accepted and I was able to pose a question. Here's a little of how it went.
Our next question comes from David Chandler of the American Association of Physics Teachers. Any number of competent measurements using a variety of methods indicate the northwest corner of WTC7 fell with an acceleration within a few percent of the acceleration of gravity. Yet your report contradicts this, claiming 40% slower than free fall based on a single data point. How can such a publicly visible, easily measurable quantity be set aside?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Sure. Any number of measurements using a variety of methods indicate the northwest corner of WTC7 fell with an acceleration within a few percent of the acceleration of gravity. Yet the report contradicts this, claiming 40% slower than the free fall based on a single data point.
Well, First of all, gravity is the loading function that applies to the structure, applies to every body, all bodies on this particular on this planet, not just in ground zero.
Whoa! I'm used to responses like that on a physics exam when a student hasn't even bothered to open the book. But this is NIST speaking, so let's continue.